a month ago, John came to me and said, hey, would you be willing to preach for me on April 7th? He said, that's right before everything kind of gets into full swing with Easter pageant, and it would be really nice to have a break that week from preparing a sermon. Quick side note, if you don't have your tickets yet for the Easter pageant, you will want to pick those up. They are free, and trust me, you do not want to miss our very own John Whitten's Oscar-winning performance in the role of Jesus. I think we can all say we have all endured months of watching the hair grow longer and the beard grow thicker, and now we have finally reached the payoff, all of that. So you be sure to make plans to attend. So anyway, I tell him, sure, I would love to, but do you by chance know what chapter we will be on in the story that week? He says, well, I'm not real sure, but I'll get back to you on that. Well, he gets back to me later that day and informs me that on April 7th, we will be in none other than the book of Revelation. Now, I got to be honest. As a kid, there were three main things that terrified me: spiders, tornadoes, and the book of Revelation. I mean, I used to love Kirk Cameron. You know, Mike Seaver from Growing Pains. He and Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell, they were pretty much my first loves. But then he went out and made these movies based on these books. Perhaps you've heard of them, Left Behind. And maybe I am the only one who experienced this, but I quickly became terrified of anything dealing with Christ's return. Luckily, though, as I have gotten older, I have come to realize that the Left Behind series falls into a literary category known as fiction. And although many good Bible-believing Christians disagree on what exactly will take place between now and Christ's return, one thing we can say with absolute and complete certainty is that God wins. Evil is defeated and God wins. So just hold on, is the message of Revelation. About a month ago, a group of our women traveled to Waco for our annual spring women's retreat. Now, I used to live in Waco for 6 years, and each time I go back, I am just continually amazed at how much the city has changed in the past few years. Now, if you have ever watched HGTV or shopped at Target or looked at the magazine rack in the checkout line at the grocery store, you know that all this change has largely come at the hands of Chip and Joanna Gaines, right? The dynamic duo of Waco, Texas. On Friday of the retreat, I got to Waco early, about lunchtime, and so some friends and I said, hey, let's head on over to Magnolia Table, Chip and Joanna's restaurant, and just see what the wait is like. After all, it's a little after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it's a weekday, maybe it won't be too bad. Well, we could not have been more wrong. I mean, we pull in to the parking lot, and before we can even park, we are met by hostesses at our car window informing us that they are shutting down the wait list for the day because, you see, they close at 3 o'clock, and it's already a more than 2-hour wait time. So as we drive off, we are looking at some of the parked cars and noticing some of their license plates. And we notice all of these out-of-state license plates, like we see California and Alabama and Georgia. And I just cannot help but think to myself, this is all a little crazy. I mean, in 2018, Waco was named the #2 destination spot in TripAdvisor's Traveler's Choice Awards for destinations on the rise, right behind some city in Hawaii that I cannot pronounce. Now, did you hear me on that? It was Hawaii and then Waco. Now, granted, the category was destinations on the rise, but still, I mean, my goodness. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Chip and Jo. They are funny. They are entertaining. They are talented. But quite frankly, so are a lot of people. So what is it that has made them so incredibly successful? Now, I am sure there are all sorts of opinions and ways to answer that question, but when you think about their show Fixer Upper, so much of the appeal is witnessing how they can take these houses that are dilapidated and falling apart, and in some cases unlivable, and turn them into something beautiful, right? We love to see the transformation, and it's even better that it takes place all in 1 hour. As dynamic as their personalities are, their show probably would not have been near as much of a hit if they were simply starting from scratch somewhere on an empty lot. We tune in to see the old made new, the seemingly unlivable full of life. It's all about the transformation. Well, right now, we live in a Genesis 3 world. We live in a world that is broken, that is falling apart, that at times seems downright unlivable. But Revelation speaks of the transformation that is to come. And trust me when I say that Chip and Joe got nothing on God. For you see, the purpose of Revelation is not to incite fear, but rather to ignite hope. To ignite hope in the people of God that a new day and a restored reality is coming. Revelation chapter 21, beginning in verse 1, as John here describes the New Jerusalem. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Now the dwelling place of God is among people, and he will live with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." He who was seated on the throne said, "I am making everything new." Then he said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." He said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To him who is thirsty, I will give to drink without cost from the spring of the water of life. He who overcomes will inherit all of this, and I will be his God, and he will be my son." The story of God, it begins in a garden, and it ends in a city. In Eden, humanity enjoyed relational perfection with God, with one another, and with creation itself. But in Genesis 3, we discover all this was lost, and you get the sense that Adam and Eve knew the depth of what they were losing, because Genesis 3:24 says that God drove them out of the garden, almost like they didn't want to leave, like they knew what they were leaving behind and what they were headed toward. And it is at this point that God embarks on a mission to restore it all. It's a story that reaches its climax in the death and resurrection of Jesus and leaves us breathless with the grand finale of the New Jerusalem, a restored heaven and earth. It is a new day. It is a new reality, one where that relational perfection between God, humanity, and creation will exist again and forevermore. And so this morning, we are going to unpack a bit of what that looks like. Of course, our human understanding is limited, and we cannot begin to comprehend all that God has in store for us, but still we want to attempt to paint a picture of this new day, this new Jerusalem, this new reality that is promised for the people of God. With that said, one thing we know, one piece of this picture, is that in the New Jerusalem, creation is restored. You know, right now there are certain rhythms sort of built into the fabric of creation that bear witness to our current reality, which is that death gives birth to new life. For example, every winter we watch the trees become bare and we watch the flowers die, but we know what? We know that spring is coming. You know, this time of year, I just love to walk around the garden center at Lowe's. I admire all the new, pretty flowers and try to decide which ones will come home with me to adorn my front porch. Something about the early part of spring causes me to completely lose touch with reality and forget transformed our lives. In your name I pray. Amen.